Some people say kindness is weakness. Some say giving is dangerous. But what if the person you help was the key to your greatest breakthrough? This is the story of Fortune, an orphan girl whose pain carved a path to purpose. She was only 6, too young to even understand what death meant, too innocent to know that peace could disappear in seconds. It started like a normal night. The oil lamp flickered on the wooden shelf. Her mother hummed quietly as she arranged clothes by the corner. Her father was outside fixing a broken handle on the door. Fortune had just been tucked into bed, her small arms wrapped around her only doll made of tied rags and leftover buttons. Then came the smell. Smoke. Thick. Bitter. Choking. She sat up, coughing. Flames were climbing the curtain. Her scream split the air. Screaming, "Mama!" Everything happened too fast. Her mother ran in, barefoot, eyes wide with terror. Her father shouted from the hallway. The fire had already reached the ceiling. Her mother didn't think. She didn't pray. She didn't even speak. She ran to her child, grabbed her, and with the strength of a desperate woman, threw Fortune through the window. The fall was hard. She hit the ground, rolled. But she was alive. She scrambled up, coughing, screaming, "Mama, Papa!" But the house was already engulfed. Neighbors ran. Water buckets flew. But it was too late. The flames danced like demons, and the house collapsed. That was the last time she saw them. At 6, she became an orphan. They sent her to the village, to her mother's only sister, Auntie Clara. At first it seemed safe. The village air was different, quiet. But soon Fortune learned what it meant to be unwanted. Auntie Clara had 3 children of her own, 2 girls and a boy. They laughed. They went to school. They wore neat clothes. But Fortune? She was the extra, the outsider. Her mattress was the mat by the kitchen. Her cup was the old tin of milk. Every morning before the sun stretched its arms, she was up, fetching water, sweeping compounds, washing plates, peeling cassava. Auntie never smiled at her, only gave orders. And the food, leftovers, cold Gary, cracked groundnuts, once in a while, boiled yam without oil. Fortune didn't cry, because she had already learned, tears don't fill stomachs. One evening she came back from the farm. Her feet were blistered, her back ached, her eyes heavy. She walked into the kitchen and lifted the pot. Just a little food remained, 1 scoop. She didn't think. Her body acted. She ate it. Seconds later, Auntie stormed in. Angry. "Who ate this food, huh?" she screamed. Fortune froze. She slapped her. The plate flew. Her cheek burned. Her cousins chuckles quietly from the corner. Angry. "You this witch? So you now steal food?" She was dragged outside, her nylon bag thrown after her. That night she slept near the mango tree. Mosquitoes bit through her skin. Her stomach rumbled with shame. She slept outside again and again, 1 week until one morning. She looked up at the sky and whispered, determined, "I deserve more than this." At just 14, she picked her things and walked toward the road that led out of the village. The city was louder than she imagined. Cars roared like wild animals. People shouted, hustled, laughed. No one noticed the small girl with a nylon bag and cracked slippers standing by the bus park. Fortune didn't know where to go. She just walked. The smell of roasted corn teased her nose. She paused near a junction, watching the woman turning corn on hot charcoal. But she had no money, just her bag and her shadow. That night she found shelter under a bridge. The concrete was cold. Her belly ached. She hugged her bag and closed her eyes. And as the city rushed above her, she dreamed of fire again. Days passed. She begged at traffic stops. People waved her off. She offered to help carry baskets at the market just to earn a little. One evening, as she sat curled under the bridge, 2 teenage boys approached. She had seen them before. They weren't friendly. "Fine girl," one of them said. "You dey here alone?" Her heart pounded. The taller boy grinned, reaching for her arm. She stood, backing away. "Leave me, please," she whispered. They moved closer. "Na small touch, we wouldn't touch you." She turned to run. Then, headlights. "Hey, what are you doing there?" A woman's voice. The boys fled. Fortune stood frozen. A car door slammed. Out stepped a woman in Ankara wrapper and yell, holding a big spoon in one hand and a basket in the other. Beside her, a man, calm, tired-looking, carried a sack of tomatoes. The woman frowned. "What are you doing here, Anne? Who are you?" Fortune hesitated. Then quietly, I sleep here." "You sleep where?" "Under bridge," the man echoed. Fortune nodded. Madame Ada looked at her husband, then back at the girl, and just like that, "Come." They took her to a small compound in a rough but safe part of town. Inside their one-bedroom apartment, Madame Ada gave her boiled rice and water. "You're not here to enjoy," she warned. "Tomorrow morning we're leaving by 5:30 a.m. You'll sweep, wash dishes, serve customers. I won't pay you, but you'll eat twice a day." Fortune nodded gratefully. It was more than she had ever been given. By morning, she was scrubbing pots. By afternoon, she was sweating under an umbrella tent on the roadside, washing plates and serving beans and rice. It wasn't easy, but it was better than the bridge, better than being touched in the dark, better than begging for survival. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. She got used to the smell of onions, stew, and smoke. Customers called her small girl or Mama Put Pekin. Some were kind, most weren't. But Fortune worked, quietly, faithfully, because in her heart she knew this wasn't the end. By now Fortune was 18, almost 19. She had become taller, stronger. Her arms carried buckets with ease. Her legs walked long distances with grace. Her face still carried sadness, but also a kind of quiet strength. Every day she woke before dawn, swept Madame Ada's house, cleaned pots, boiled rice, then followed Madame Ada to their roadside food stall. The umbrella was patched. The bench was old, but the pots, always hot, always full. Customers came with hunger and left with oil stains on their shirts. Drivers, mechanics, market women, policemen. But then, he came, not as a customer, not even with money. He came limping, bandages wrapped around his elbows, one eye swollen, skin dark with sun and dust. People called him mad. Others said he was cursed. He came near the tent, silent, watching, and when no one was looking, he whispered, "Please, anything to eat." Madame Ada saw him. "Go away," she snapped, "before you attract flies to my stew." He shuffled back. Fortune watched from behind the dish stand. Her heart dropped. She didn't know why, but something about him reminded her of herself. So that evening, after her second meal had been served, she wrapped half of it in nylon and slipped it into his hands when Madame Ada wasn't looking. He didn't speak, just nodded and walked away. The next day she did it again, and the next. He never said thank you, never asked questions. He just accepted. And in that silent exchange, something grew. She started saving small slices of yam, bits of beans, crusts of bread. Some days he came earlier, some days later. But he always came. She wondered what his name was, where he slept, why he looked like someone who had once worn a suit. She never asked, because Fortune knew. Sometimes asking hurts more than silence. One day Madame Ada saw her handing over food. "Fortune!" The shout sliced through the air. "What do you think you're doing? That food is not yours to waste." I just... He looked hungry." She slapped her. "You want to die of hunger and they'll say I'm wicked. You'll see now." The man stood by the tree, still, watching. Fortune's cheeks burned, but she said nothing. That night she didn't eat, but the next morning she brought him food again. And for the first time, he looked into her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." It was soft, gentle, but it meant more than a million naira. She didn't know who he was, but he knew now. She was different, and that difference was about to change everything. His name was Daniel Madu, but the streets didn't know that. To them, he was just another wounded wanderer. Bandaged arms, limping gait, silent eyes, another ghost drifting through the crowd. But behind the rags was a story that few could ever imagine. Daniel Madu was born into wealth. His father, Chief Sebastian Madu, was one of the most respected industrialists in the city. He owned companies, estates, even hotels across the state. People bowed when they saw him. And when Daniel was born, they said, "This child will inherit kingdoms." He did. By 22, Daniel had graduated top of his class. By 24, he sat on the board of the largest oil and gas firm in the state. By 26, he had already bought his second house in Banana Island. He wore custom suits, drove exotic cars, and girls, they lined up, not for his heart, but for his status. But then, his father died. A sudden stroke. Just like that, the man who built an empire was gone. At the funeral, people cried crocodile tears. Business partners made speeches. But behind the scenes, one of those partners was plotting. Chief Okafor, his father's closest friend, had been jealous all along. Jealous of the Madu name, jealous of Daniel's influence. Within months, papers were forged. Lawyers were bribed, and Daniel lost everything. His father's shares, the properties, the company, everything gone. He tried to fight. But when you lose power, even your voice becomes an echo. His bank accounts were frozen. His house was taken. His friends? Gone. Even the woman he had planned to marry vanished. People whispered, he must have done something wrong. Rich today, poor tomorrow. Daniel became a ghost in the city he once ruled. And every time he looked in the mirror, he asked, is there anyone left who would love me without my money? Then one day something changed. A close friend, one of the few who remained loyal, reopened his father's case. Evidence emerged. Documents were exposed. Truth found its voice. And just like that, Daniel won everything back. Properties, titles, control. He was Daniel Madu again. Rich, powerful, feared. But something in him had shifted. Now that everyone wanted to return, all the girls, all the fake friends, all the greedy hands, he wondered, where were you when I had nothing? So Daniel made a choice. He dressed in rags, wrapped his limbs, limped on purpose. He became the mad beggar that no one noticed, and visited stalls, shops, markets. Mama put stands, just watching, testing, until one day by the roadside under a red umbrella. A girl gave him food, with no questions, no judgment, just quiet kindness. That girl was Fortune. And that very day, Daniel made a vow. She is the one I will honor, not because she fed me, but because she saw my soul before my name. Fortune had done it again. She'd given him food. One small plate of jollof rice, one piece of fried plantain. That morning, Daniel had arrived late, limping more than usual. His face looked pale, like he hadn't eaten in days. Madame Ada had already gone to the market to buy fresh tomatoes, so Fortune took the chance and gave him her breakfast, just like before. She didn't hear Madame Ada return, didn't see her standing behind the tree, didn't notice the look of pure rage on the woman's face. Until Fortune! Her heart dropped. She turned, the food still in hand, Daniel still standing there, wide-eyed. Are you mad? Madame Ada screamed. You're still giving this dirty street boy my food. I was just... Slap. Madame Ada didn't hold back. You want to destroy me, Abi? You want people to say I'm wicked when you faint from hunger? After I took you from the street, this is how you repay me? Giving my food to a limping stranger. Madam, I didn't mean to dis... Enough, she bellowed. She turned, marched into the shop, dragged out Fortune's small nylon bag, her only belongings. Clothes barely folded, a small comb, a wrapper. Take your things and leave my house, now! Fortune stood frozen. The market was watching. Customers stared from across the road. Please, she whispered, let me wait for your husband. He'll understand. Go and meet your parents in the grave. I said get out! With a trembling hand, Fortune picked up her bag. Daniel tried to say something, but she turned away. Not from shame, but from pain. That night, she slept under the bridge again. Same corner, same cement, same haunting silence. Except now, she wasn't a little girl anymore. She was a woman who had given everything and lost again. When Madame Ada's husband returned home that night, he was furious. "You sent her away? Without telling me?" he shouted. "She was feeding that beggar," Madame Ada snapped, "giving him our food like we're running a charity. Even at that, she's just a girl. Did you forget where we found her?" The man ran outside, checked all their usual haunts, but she was gone. Meanwhile, Daniel returned to the stall the next morning. He waited. No fortune. He came again the next day. Nothing. By the third day, he approached a regular customer, a man who always bought okra and fufu. "Please, sir, the girl who serves here, where is she?" The man's face twisted. You're the reason she's gone." Daniel's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "She gave you food. Her madam caught her, threw her out. Poor girl is probably back on the street." Daniel's voice cracked. "Please, I didn't mean for this to happen. I want to help her." The man spat at the ground. "You want to help now that she's gone? Leave that girl alone before you ruin her life even more," Daniel begged. "Please, just tell me where I can find her." The man sighed. "I pass the old bridge every morning. Sometimes I see her sitting there. Same place you were found. Maybe go look there." Daniel didn't wait. He went home, showered, shaved, put on a fresh white shirt and black trousers, entered his tinted SUV, drove to the bridge, and there she was, sitting under the same slab, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes empty. The same girl who gave him food when he had nothing, now had nothing again. He didn't stop. Not yet. He watched, and guilt swallowed him. Because this time, he wasn't coming to ask for food. He was coming to make things right. Fortune had returned to the streets. She didn't cry anymore. She had no more tears. Every night she sat under the bridge, the same corner she once thought she had escaped. People passed her like she was air. The city didn't see girls like her. Then came that night, a white car parked not far from her spot. The headlights switched off. A woman stepped out, uniformed, clean, commanding. She walked over, bent slightly, and said, "Young lady, what are you doing here?" Fortune froze. "I'm not arresting you," the police officer said gently. "I just want to talk." And so, she spoke. She told the officer everything about the fire, the village, the food stall, the man in bandages, and the slap that sent her back to the gutter. The woman listened, not with pity, but with purpose. Then she stood and said, "Follow me." Fortune didn't ask where. She just walked. They drove to a restaurant. She ate until her stomach hurt. Then to a boutique. For the first time in her life, she tried on clean jeans, a soft yellow top, sandals with straps. Then they drove again, to an apartment. It wasn't big, but it was beautiful. Neat floors, a real bed, curtains that danced in the breeze, a fridge, a gas cooker, a hot bath. The police officer handed her a small envelope. "There's enough here for anything you need. And don't worry, this place is yours, for as long as you want." Fortune stood speechless. "Why?" she whispered. The officer smiled. "Someone out there wants to see you happy. That's all I know." Then she left. Days turned into weeks. Strangers began to visit the apartment. A young woman taught her how to speak confidently. A man brought her books and notebooks. A tailor measured her for dresses. A life coach asked her what her dreams were. She kept asking, "Who sent you?" They all smiled. "Someone who wants you to smile again." Then one morning, a knock at the door. Software familiar. She opened it, and her breath caught. It was him, Daniel, but not the clean, polished man she once imagined. He looked exactly like before. Bandaged, limping, wounded. "Fortune," he said, voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I never meant to cause you pain." But she didn't let him finish. She took his hand gently. "Daniel, it wasn't your fault. My madam overreacted. I was never angry with you." He looked confused. "You should be." She shook her head, smiling. "Someone once fed me when I had nothing. Why should I be angry at you for needing the same?" He dropped his gaze, tears falling. "I came to say thank you and goodbye." She pulled him inside. "I made rice. You haven't eaten, have you?" He chuckled softly, shaking. He ate like a child, quietly, carefully. While eating, Fortune asked him, "What have you been doing? Can I give you some money to start a business? Even kicking a pep?" He looked at her with a smile and said, "You have done more than enough for me. I will go and return tomorrow morning." He smiled and said, "Don't worry, everything will be fine," then stood to leave. And that's when it happened. As he was about leaving the gate, the security man saw him gasped. "Ah, boss! What happened? Why are you dressed like this? This is your house now." Fortune's spoon dropped. She turned to Daniel slowly. "Boss?" The guard continued. "You don't know him? This is Daniel Matu, the richest man in the city. This building, he owns it." Her vision blurred. Her knees buckled. She fainted. When she opened her eyes, Daniel was holding her hand. "I didn't mean to lie," he whispered. "I just needed to know who would love me without the money. Without the title." She said nothing. He dropped to one knee. "Fortune, you fed me when no one else did. You gave without expecting. You stayed kind, even when life was cruel. Will you let me love you? Not because I'm rich, but because your love healed me." Tears slipped down her cheek. She nodded and whispered, "Yes." In preparation for their wedding, Daniel turned to Fortune one evening and said gently, "Don't you think we need to visit Madame Ada?" Fortune smiled, a soft warmth in her eyes. "You read my mind. I've been thinking about her too." A few days later they set out, but not quietly. Their visit was nothing short of royal. A convoy of luxury vehicles pulled into the narrow street where Madame Ada's small shop still stood. Gleaming SUVs lined the dusty roadside, followed by a police escort van. The blaring sirens had stopped just at the junction to avoid alarming anyone. But the presence alone drew attention. Curious neighbors and passers-by rushed out, peeking from windows and doorways. And then she stepped out. Fortune, radiant, graceful, dressed in a flowing gown that shimmered in the afternoon sun. Daniel stood by her side, confident and proud. Madame Ada had been arranging smoked fish on her wooden stall when she looked up and froze. Her mouth parted, hands trembling slightly as the tray slipped from her grip, and lo, Madame Ada looked up from her tray of smoked fish. Her hand trembled. "Jesus," she whispered. "Fortune?" Her knees buckled slightly as her eyes widened in disbelief. Fortune walked toward her and hugged her tightly. The woman who once took her in from the bridge, now holding the daughter she never thought she'd see again. Like this. A man in the crowd whispered, "Is that not the madman who used to beg for food here?" Another replied, "It's him. I heard he's the only son of Chief Madhu, the richest man in this city." They went home with Ada to meet her husband. In their humble sitting room, Madame Ada's husband came out, shocked but smiling. Daniel told his story, how he lost everything, how fortune never judged him, how love found them both. Madame Ada wept. "I was too hard on you. I didn't know." But Fortune smiled, held her hand, and said, "You're my mother. You picked me from that bridge. You gave me a chance. I don't need an apology." Tears flowed freely. That day, the girl they once called a burden returned in glory, and the man they called mad was now a king. Together they came, not to prove a point, but to show that grace always wins. If this story touched your heart, like it touched mine, don't scroll without commenting. Grace always wins. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that will leave you breathless. This is not just a story, it's a testimony.